Those days, digital marketing was not really there. So it was more about the traditional marketing channels. While all the market nuances of marketing still exist, the channels were quite different.
You taught me a new term today, which I was not familiar with. ERV, you said, right?
Yes.
So let's just dig a little deeper into what this means.
If you increase your retention rates by, let's say, 5%, it would mean it would increase the profitability of the organization from anything ranging from 20 to 90%.
Wow. Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of the State of Retention Marketing podcast. Today, we have here Mrs. Azmat Habibulla. She's had 25 plus years of experience across diverse domains, including the last 16 in the banking industry. It's a complex world out there, and the kind of learning curve she's demonstrated in terms of being able to talk about cohorts and MarTech stacks is quite phenomenal. To start with, how about we ask Azmat to just give us a bit of a glimpse into her journey?
I started my my career in FMCG. Very interesting phase of my life. The first job, and FMCG is extremely exciting from a marketer's point of view. Of course, those days, digital marketing was not really there. So it was more about the traditional marketing channels. While all the market nuances of marketing still exist, the channels were quite different. So that was my first phase of my career in brands like Miswak, Babool, Promise. Some of them are still existing and on the shelves and taken over by Dabur. After that, I kind of ventured into BFSI, starting from IL&FS InvestSmart and then heading on to ICICI Bank. A major part of my career was with ICICI Bank over 15 years, where I've headed several business groups ranging from SME to international banking group, all the various countries, NRI remittances, to transaction banking, global markets group, corporate banking group, private banking. And
just about everything that possibly could be, right? There's a
not
fairly wide
really,
spectrum.
there are several departments. And now I'm for a year and a half as CMO in South Indian Bank. Again, extremely exciting year. I mean, I'm kind of in charge of the overall marketing across the bank, including corporate communication. And we have an immense journey to move ahead with. This is a legacy bank of 94 years. It has a very rich history. We have customers who have been with us for 3 generations. So a completely different banking setup out here with different challenges, but a very exciting way ahead. So it's been great so far, and I'm looking forward to a great run here.
Awesome. So very interesting the way you've had a fairly diverse view across the different parts of the banking ecosystem. You know what I would love to zoom into now that you're at the helm of marketing at a banking kind of platform. What does the charter of a CMO look like? What are the different ways in which you break down your things that you are supposed to take care of?
Very simply put, there are a couple of facets of marketing. At an overall level, the brand itself, which is very important, and adding value and creating a larger brand value. That's at a very broad level. Breaking it up into finer, functions. Given that we are a bank, a very, very important KRA for marketing is, of course, acquiring new customers, creating new channels for acquisition, especially the digital channels, which can be a very strong acquisition channel for business. In my erstwhile organization for NRI businesses, digital marketing was contributing to 90% of the leads for acquisition because there was no feet on street in international markets. So it has a potential of being a very great acquisition contributor. So that's one of the key important objectives. Of course, existing customers and creating great value and extracting the maximum value of your existing customers, which we term as ERV, existing relationship value, is of course a very, very important function. And like I said, in an industry like banking, it's about the customer continuously using us. So it's not just about acquiring an account, it's about being the primary banker for the customer. So retention in that sense is much more important than it would be in many other industries.
Sure. Yeah, well, which is exactly why I thought that I'm sure there'd be learnings for multiple other industries while this is a banking industry conversation. So you taught me a new term today, which I was not familiar with. ERV, you said, right?
Yes.
So let's just dig a little deeper into what this means. How do you calculate this? What is a great ERV going to look like? And, how do you measure it?
So ERV simply, it means existing relationship value. What it means is what is the value that you can extract from your existing customers,
Sure.
and what is the lifetime value that you can get from an existing customer. I'll just like to first throw some data points, which is basically industry data itself. A customer, you are getting a new customer to transact with you is 5 times more expensive than getting an existing customer to transact with you or cross-sell another product.
Sure.
That's one data point. In terms of profitability, if you increase your retention rates by, let's say, 5%, it would mean it would increase the profitability of the organization from anything ranging from 20 to 90%.
Wow.
So that's the
So we should
value
definitely
of
use this in our
retention.
retention pitches that guys take this more seriously.
Yeah.
But so in our world, when we talk about, so we're very familiar with e-commerce spaces, so, right? The way the contribution margin works and how delivery fees have to be taken out and logistics costs have to be taken out, and then you have a contribution margin with some totals to the lifetime value that we get into. In case of the banking ecosystem, I would have a savings account with you, I might have a credit card with you, I might have a car loan with you, I might have a home loan with you. Could be a variety of things. So with each of these contributions, what is the math of the relationship value? I mean, are you looking at purely what? The account balance is probably not the answer. So what is the metric of value here?
Right, there are several metrics out here. So at an overall level, it would be the relationship value, which is a sum total of all the relationships that you would have at the bank level across multiple products. Of course, the number of products per customer, which we call P2C, is extremely important. Again, in terms of customer retention, for every new product that is sold to an existing customer, that customer is 3 times more likely to be, retained, or the retention level increases by 3x of that customer. So, stickiness increases.
Sure.
So, if you have a single product relationship with a customer, we are very vulnerable to, lose that customer at any time.
Sure.
So, that's the constant endeavor in a bank, is to have multiple product relationships. That's a very important metrics. Of course, the overall profitability of the customer is an important metrics, which it's not only about the balances, but it's also about several factors like number of transactions, value of transactions, so on, asset relationships.
But that's
predominantly.
From the MDR side of things. Is that the profitability?
No. It's a bank. It's at
But by having a certain account with the bank and a certain balance in the bank, do I make profit for the bank?
So that's what,
As a
it's not
customer?
only about having one balance. If you have multiple relationships, if you have a asset relationship, you also have a third party relationship, which in our case is insurance and stuff
Sure.
like that, where the bank earns fee income in and all this put together, including savings account, is where the profitability comes in.
Sure.
And that's where lifetime value also gets
Absolutely.
calculated.
So, to me, this is a big black box, which is what I'm going to hope to demystify for a lot of
Yeah.
our people today. But what are the highest, let's say, sold products in your ecosystem?
No, so definitely the accounts and the deposits are the
Most common.
most sold, and that would be in a lot of customers the entry level products
Sure.
that they enter
They
with.
would enter with.
Of course, the loans is the other big this of a product. Range of products, right from personal loan, gold loan, home loan, vehicle loan.
So whole portfolio of loans.
The entire portfolio, MSME loans, corporate loans,
Sure.
working capital, everything. And then there are these third-party products, which would mean insurance, life, non-life, and so on. So all this.
So fairly large portfolio. Now, typically, you said the customer would enter from something like a savings account and maybe a salary account, and then from then onwards, his relationship will expand into multiple dimensions. And from the organization's perspective, is this different verticals? So there's somebody who's responsible for, let's say, home loans, somebody else responsible for vehicle loans, somebody else responsible for credit cards, or how is this organized?
Yeah, so we do have separate verticals, and we have vertical specialists heading those verticals. We have separate verticals for corporate banking, home loans, secured loans, unsecured loans, the liability part of it, third party. So everything is kind of verticalized.
So from your charter perspective, what this would mean is you need to drive demand for each of these products. And who's the audience for each of these products would be a function of some amount of work that this is completely new people coming into the banking ecosystem. Plus, this is a set of people who are in our ecosystem already at a certain level of maturity, who are now the perfect audience to be offering, let's say, a car loan to or a vehicle, whatever, commercial loan to. Is that how it would look in terms
of? So see, marketing cuts across all these functions.
Right.
It's our KRA to look at all the products and the entire gamut of banking. So we do run a lot of segmented campaigns with specific cohorts, which have been identified for specific products or a specific transaction for which we are, running that campaign for. It could be anything. It could be like a remittance campaign. It could be a promotional campaign like Remit and Win or Remit and Retain or stuff like that.
Sure.
It could be a pre-approved personal loan campaign, which we are, communicating to a very specific cohort who's eligible for that pre-approved loan. And
so that's a fairly comprehensive level of segmentation at play. Which takes me back to a slightly, higher level up question. What was your first interaction with MarTech in your journey of 26 years? When did you first start talking the language of cohorts and segmentation and personalization?
No. So, talking the language of cohorts and segmentation has been there, let's say, since I entered the banking industry.
Because generally marketers, at least in the FMCG ecosystem, very used to creative campaigns, communication, defining an audience segment in terms of women who have kids living in urban cities. That's how you imagine a segment, and you want to write an ad and message towards that. But then you have this new world where there's a whole lot of data to deal with. And you're suddenly dealing with too many segments and too many elements. And if you were to do a resonant message with each of them, then it just fragments way too much. So I was curious at what point. So banking industry was that point where the switch happened for you?
Yes, you can say that. And specifically in South Indian Bank is where I'm also heading this campaign management.
Sure.
It's part of, it kind of rolls into my team itself. And so here I'm more involved in the MarTech, so to say, decision making. So
this was then, from a maturity curve perspective, if you were to think about how, let's say, the underlying data stacks have to come together, how the business goals have to come together in terms of there are 20 products you could sell, but then there's a certain customer journey which would be more effective than the others. You might have some heuristics around this because of the maturity and the time the team and yourself would have spent, but then there are still experiments to be done. So I would love to understand how is this team organized, which does all of this campaign management. How do they decide priorities? How do they unify the underlying data that, one customer is ultimately one relationship, how many of the different products they sell? And if different teams have different objectives, how do you prioritize that, okay, this is more important / this is more suited for this segment versus that? Because otherwise it can get a complete chaos, right? As a customer, I might get 20 different product upsell windows in the same day. How do you kind of look at this structure?
So let me just break it up into a couple of parts. So firstly, in terms of how our campaign management is structured, over the last year and a half, we've or just before that, we've kind of created our CDP or a central data mart, which is a unified customer interface where the entire customer data is stored and seen. This is a on-premise data mart,
I thought as much.
so to say.
But that's a regulatory thing, right? You can't go off-premise.
No, it's not a regulatory thing. It's there have been, it's a choice due to security reasons more than anything else. But yes, there are some banks who have kind of moved to cloud also. So it's a conscious
Choice in your
decision
case.
that has been taken. And then we have campaign management, which is on cloud.
Sure.
So we are able to, and it has been quite challenging creating this data mart, because we've been a legacy bank, and the robustness of the data, right from, like, it's over 94 years.
Plus.
So that there had a lot of work had to happen to create this robustness in terms of incomplete data, missing contactability, and so on and so forth, which has kind of to a large part been achieved, and we do have
So
this.
is this something you
central-
initiated, or you kind of stepped
Yes,
into it
so
halfway
we-
through? Where was this?
No,
You've
no,
been here
so-
for a while,
right,
about a year and a half now.
Right. So it has been initiated soon after I joined, and then ever since we've been running segmented campaigns.
So this is what you're saying is, you very well knew that day zero, you need to have a centralized data system, because there's nothing you can do without it. And hence, one of the first charters you picked up was to unify data.
Right.
And in that process, you said that there was a bunch of missing components. Let's say there was missing contactability and so on. So what are the different data sources that you are able to bring together to this centralized data mart now?
So in fact, all the data sources can be brought together. It is kind of integrated with our core banking platform, which
Sure.
gives the transaction data of the customer. Engagement data is there through our dashboards and all
Sure.
of that, and our campaign management tool. We also have behavioral data. So kind of we get that sense of internally all the data segments, of course.
And all the different product level engagements as well,
Yes.
that who has what and who
Yes.
had what in that
Yes,
history of everything.
yes,
So it's all come
absolutely.
together at one place.
It's all
now.
come together. So to that level, we do have that unified look. In terms of what you said, there are several businesses and several objectives and several. So each of them have their own business deliverables and marketing services. All of them. Even within the team, there are several. Even within my team, there are business marketing. Spokes which are attached, so they work very closely with the business, and we are running several campaigns, but we're not overloading one individual customer. So that's the beauty of segmented campaigns and cohort based campaigns. So you are only getting what is relevant to you. So as a single customer, you are not going to get
one customer who might be relevant for 20 different things, and those 20 different businesses are probably going to ask of marketing, and I have my targets to meet, solve for it. So how do you decide that priority as to who's going to get
see,
how
at
much?
a customer level, we are conscious about not overloading the customer with too much communication. So actually, at a weekly level, let's say we may run around 5-6 campaigns in a week. But at a customer level, we would ensure that in a week they would get around 1 or 2, not more than 2 communications. So that is also controlled at a customer level as well.
So which are these two then? And how does that get decided systematically?
So that could be a random allocation based on if
The
a
different things
campaign
that are
has just
possible.
got out, then that customer will not receive the next campaign, or will be scheduled to receive it after some time.
So in some sense, more scheduling / cadence driven, that okay, the first 2 that went out as far as his segment is concerned, after that you put a pause in some sense. And typically from an engine that makes it run in terms of the kind of follow through processes. So you have, let's say, one campaign that I've received as a consumer. Let's say I'm being offered a car loan. Now I might react to it, do something, and probably not complete the whole journey. I might not respond to it at all. So what typically happens in both these scenarios? If I react to it in some fashion, then somebody somewhere would do something. How would it play out?
Yeah, absolutely. So all our campaigns are kind of integrated with proper tracking mechanism.
Sure.
So, and we kind of tend to use multiple channels. So if, like you said, if a customer has not really opened an email, there would be a follow-up communication, maybe through a different channel, like an SMS or a notification and stuff like that. So we normally, for all the campaigns, there is a waterfall across channels.
And you've seen incremental value from using this?
Yes.
Or this is more heuristic driven at this point? Can this make sense?
No, we do see value, and maybe there would be 3 levels across channels, and we do see, like, sometimes people are more likely to open an email versus some are more likely to see an SMS. So we use that, in terms of those who have not reacted or engaged with one channel. We do.
You'd find it very interesting, the fact that you're so easily saying that we must use multiple channels.
Yeah.
A lot of brands and companies are still sitting on the fence with respect to, okay, do I need to use more channels? Is this too spammy? Is this too creepy? We've at our level seen a lot of incremental delta by adding one channel at a time, in terms of, not to say that there's a broadcast blast messaging, but you use the word waterfall appropriately.
Yes.
That, okay, you have to have a systematic orchestration across multiple channels. But you can't live in that world where you'll say, I'll only use email, I'll only use this, I'll only use that, because that's not how the audience thinks. So which is where I'm quite happy that you're able to acknowledge this, that this is a learning from a data-driven outcome as well, that you're able to use multiple channels that gives you incremental benefit. I think for the benefit of the larger audience as well, the other thing that you very clearly stated outright as a very obvious thing was the fact that unified data was your starting point. Pretty much the moment you took over as CMO, you said, okay, this needs to happen before much else can be done. So for anybody who's still sitting on the fence on unifying data, it's there's no brainer. You have to do it. There's no way out of it. Is that a statement we can
yes,
attribute to you?
Definitely. And coming to your second part of the question of people who have responded to the communication, probably there would be a call to action which would lead to either a landing page or it would, it's integrated with our CRM. So if it's a landing page and the customer kind of puts in a lead or puts in a request, it would, the CRM team would then land up calling them for the fulfillment of that product.
What I
So
hear you tell
everything is
Azmat
kind of tracked.
in a year and a half, there's a fair bit of sophistication that I can see you brought to the table from where it started off. From where it started, probably not even have like a unified data platform also in place. Is that where it was before you came in?
Yeah, so we were creating a unified data platform. We had started segmented campaigns, and when I came in, we were doing cohort-based and specific campaigns. Subsequently, we upgraded and started doing automated campaigns, which have worked very well for us as well. Of course,
automation works well. Remember that.
Yeah, of course, we have a long way ahead.
Of course.
Our next step, or in the coming year, we want to get into a very evolved MarTech
So
platform.
I'd love to get into what that Nirvana picture looks like for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So we do want to get into the next level of getting a MarTech stack appropriate for our organization. And like you said, the Nirvana or the ideal picture would be one which is truly omni-channel, real time, and which can deliver, micro cohorts and personalization at scale.
Sure.
So if I may put it in a nutshell.
Of course, there's a lot of jargon for a lot of people, but sure, I can understand that you fully know what you're talking about and what this would translate into. We were talking about the whole Nirvana picture, right? So we spoke about it in an abstract fashion where this is hyper-personalization and where there is automation, there is scale and those components. I wouldn't get into naming the banks who you kind of would want to model on, but what are the best ideas you've seen come together in the whole experience? As a consumer, you might have received a message from a bank which told you, these guys know what they're doing and how they're doing it. Or an experience from the mobile application from another bank where you thought that this is great, how do I solve it?
Yeah, so there are, I think, a lot of organization that has evolved on the tech curve and, gone are the days where, irrelevant communication was given. Of course, it still
does.
Okay. So, but what we also do at South Indian Bank is we are very careful in terms of, that's what I'm saying. So, it's all about giving the right message at the right time to the right set of customers.
It's incredibly hard, right, if you think about it? Because
it's not really, because there are tools and there are models and to help you with that.
Okay, let's talk about the people side of things. Now, when you came into the picture, I'm assuming you also had a charter to expand the team in a certain fashion to kind of solve for some of these processes, because they're not, for a 90-year-old bank, they know a lot of things, but I'm not sure if they always knew MarTech and CDP and tech and data, right? So how did you go about either, let's say, assembling the team from internally, whatever you had available, / bringing in people from outside, / upskilling? What was your people playbook?
Yeah, so there, I have a mixed team. There are a lot of people who are in-house, who are being nurtured and trained, and really good people. And then there are some specialist roles where we have gone into hiring from outside, people who have existing experience in those functions. So it's
typically from the new economy or traditional banking ecosystem?
No, from across industries in that function. So in that sense, it's a hybrid team and it's a pretty good team. So that's how we've developed. In terms of South Indian Bank, at the stage of technology stage that it was in before, I'm although it's a legacy bank, it's extremely tech savvy.
Yeah.
So you may be surprised to know that 94% of transactions are digitally done, even today
Okay.
in South Indian Bank. And
So the consumer initiates them on a digital interface.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And digital means across channels. I'm talking
which is fine.
about all channels digital. It would
Since
also
when have you had an
include.
app, for example?
Yeah, so the app is there for quite a long
Yeah.
time, quite a while, and it's a really good app in terms of the user interface, and it's available in 8 languages,
Sure.
which is
Okay.
which is not the case with most banks.
I'm
Very
sure.
few banks have that, and it's a pretty good intuitive app with good
Now that
user
makes me wonder
interface.
about what's your customer persona and what's the segment of market that South Indian Bank kind of stands focused on, because it's a large market, fairly competitive space.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a certain niche and persona and audience segment that you've chosen for, or
Yeah.
at least focused
So
on.
see, like I told you, we have 3 generations of customers banking with us over,
Yeah.
and it's a 94-year-old legacy bank. So the focus is to appeal and address and the needs of the younger segment. We are largely targeting Gen Zs and the millennials, and that would be my focus target segment in all the communication that we do.
Sure.
Because they are the customers of tomorrow, or today rather, and they've completely changed. The behavior is drastically different from the earlier generations, and the way they look at banking is also very, very different. So it's very important that we have to be nimble and agile, and be in line with this expectation level of the Gen Zs. So that's
So which is then going to put you against some of the other guys who are probably neobanks born 3 years ago, but then addressing
yes.
this so-called unique needs of
But
this Gen Z.
very importantly, the neobanks don't have the legacy or the trust factor that we
Absolutely.
own over so many years. So that's where I think we have the additional
edge, of
strength.
course.
In fact, we've just launched our new campaign also, which precisely says this. It says trust meets tech since 1929. So we own the trust of customers over 9 decades, and we are tech savvy and in line with
Well,
the
I would imagine from a data science point of
expectations
view,
of the-
own an insane amount of data as well, because
Yeah.
to build a whole lot of risk models around who to give loan to at what price, typically any bank would discover a whole bunch of NPAs before they get to that understanding. Now you've done that over several years, so in terms of your ability to underwrite loans might be very different from somebody else's. So I would imagine for a young guy, if he's looking out for his first loan, you might be better placed to give him the best price compared to what a neobank might be. Would that be a
No, not necessarily. The pricing decisions are taken at a different level, and in some cases we would be really competitive, maybe
right.
not in some cases. Neobanks, where they have an edge really is the customer experience. The user experience is extremely simple and easy to use. So that's where we are heading towards that. Our interface is quite user friendly, especially our mobile app. But of course, we can do better.
So, I'm going to zoom into a part of customer relationship, because, typically for a bank, I was having a conversation with Deepak from SDFC Bank, and he told me in very candid terms that when you open an account with me, I owe you money as a bank, right? So it's not making money for me yet. That's not where the relationship is meaningful for me. The relationship becomes meaningful for me when you take a loan from me, because that's when you're going to pay me interest, and that's where the bank earns from. Now, in your scenario, there is all of this effort on acquiring customers and getting more people to either install the application or set up an account and put their first balance in. And this is a funnel where there'd be drop-offs. So at a macro level, if you were to really look at expanding customer relationship as a goal, which is once you've acquired a customer, you have to get to a point where he's meaningful for you. Where are the biggest pain points or problem areas where you see the most amount of your attention being spent, or at least your team's bandwidth or mental bandwidth being spent?
Let's say the entry point of a customer is a savings account, and he's a savings account customer. He has a certain amount of balance with us, and he's doing a certain level of transaction. So I mentioned earlier, the number of products or hooks that are there for each customer is extremely important, even for customer stickiness and retention. I think industry average would be anything between 3 to 3.5 products per customer, and that should be our
That's the
endeavor.
average that a typical relationship would have, or that's
Yeah,
the
bank, in a
aspirational
bank.
state where you would want to move people towards?
So that would be an average industry benchmark, around 3 products per customer. So if we have a savings account customer and also has a gold loan with me, and also is availed a home loan plus an insurance, and that's where that customer will be a profitable customer, will be a valued customer from the bank's point of view.
Fair enough. So if I were to zoom into the journey of this guy getting acquired to a savings account customer, and the kind of journey you kind of steer him towards in order to become a valuable customer for the bank, what would that look like? What are the behaviors that you will encourage? For instance, I heard the whole payment setup on auto pay of the electricity bill is one of the stickiness components, is what I'd heard. In your case, have you discovered some of these stickiness components that...
Yeah. So some of the stickiness components is digital adoption is a big component. A customer who's digitally onboarded is 80% more sticky than a
So saying
customer
who's set up an account on the website or installed the
so
mobile
no,
application?
who's
what are you saying?
activated on internet banking, mobile app, who's using our digital channels primarily, will be far more will stay with you far longer than a customer who's still using the physical channels. That's why digital adoption is a very, very important goal for marketers like us, for us. The other thing is the number of products that are there for each customer. That also ensures a lot of stickiness. The onboarding of a customer is very critical. The first 90 days of a new customer, if you're able to successfully, or the customer is able to do 4 to 5 transactions across debits and credits in the first 90 days, that customer is more likely to remain with you over a longer period of time.
What do you do to engineer that?
Yeah, so we have a full automated life cycle onboarding campaign, which kind of spans over 90 days, right from when the day 0 is the day of the account opening to the 90 days where nudges are given to the customers to enable these transactions. So in the initial 10-15 days, it would be to create awareness about all our services, all our products, all our channels. The focus would be to make him digitally active, to get him to open the mobile app, to get him to use the debit card, to use internet banking. And the next 1 month to 45 days would focus on doing transactions. That's where even simple transactions through the mobile app, we have 100 plus billers onboarded through our bill payment. It's extremely simple, very simple to do a UPI transaction through the mobile app, or a fund transfer, or investment, and all of that. So to get them to actively use any of our channels, and then once the banking stage or the transaction stage, then the next phase of that 90-day period would be to get them to do investments and get them to avail insurance and third-party products. So that entire journey is completely automated with the right nudges, all based on the customer's transaction behavior.
Of all the people who open the account, how many end up with 3 products at the end of 90 days?
More than 3 products, it's about end up with 4 to 5 transactions.
Yeah. Say 5 transactions.
Yeah, so there is a good number, at least 50-60%
crossover
would be, yeah.
And in terms of the aggression on the acquisition side of things, are you the most aggressive marketers to be acquiring more and more customers? Because what tends to happen typically is when there is some sort of incentivization on opening accounts, people tend to open, but then they don't maintain the relationship. So if you're getting 60% of them back, probably then that's great. But I wonder if that's happening at scale with aggression, or is that still
No. So there is no mis-selling or incentivization or done, so that quality is extremely important, especially over the last 2 years. We had a new MD in place, and there's a whole transformation happening, and there's an immense focus on the quality of accounts acquired. Predominantly on the asset side to prevent NPAs and all of that, but also for liabilities, to acquire a good quality customer which makes also sense from the bank. So
Sure.
it's not just go out and get any customer kind of a philosophy. So we do.
So while you want to grow aggressively, but be mindful of the quality.
Absolutely.
That's where the
of the
legacy
value the
advantage,
customer provides. Because if you get a customer who's started a relationship but is not using you as a primary bank, that actually is a loss-making customer for the bank.
So would you then imagine that this is people who are using this as the first bank account, because a whole bunch of young people would be opening their first accounts now, or is this typically their second or third or fourth bank account, but they'll make it primary?
Correct. It could be. So on an average, so while banking in the industry, as compared to other industries, has a retention or loyalty percentage of 75%, which is pretty high compared to other industries, though loyalty as a concept is fading as time goes by. Having said that, even with that advantage, what happens in a banking relationship is it's not just one relationship. So typically a customer will definitely have at least 2 to 3 banks at any point of time. So it's the challenge is in becoming the primary banker of the customer, which means that he should use you for most of his banking relationships. And that is quite a challenging task because like I said, if anything falls short, the customers very easily will switch relationships and go to the other bank. They don't even have to open an account because they already have 3 banking relationships at this point of time. So it becomes very easy to switch over from one to the other. That's where customer stickiness plays a big role, and that's where all these elements of onboarding, automated campaign, number of products, digital, and of course the entire customer experience, the servicing levels, and so on, play a role.
Comprehensive and complicated problem. So I'm going to step back a little bit and now look at life from a cohorts and segments point of view, because you have so many of them and you could slice and dice customers by several variables, right?
We have a predictive modeling at play where there is a data science team which marketing works very closely with, and they derive these predictive modeling tools. Okay, so the whole idea there is to identify the right cohort for the right product at that period of time, and it kind of culls out that cohort and identifies them as
so then they would
medium, high, low
propensity to buy
propensity to buy that product. And the idea is to identify that 30% or 20% of the customer base who is likely to buy 80% of that product. And just to give you an example, if I want NRI customers to opt for FCNR deposits, so again, there is this through this propensity modeling, that cohort of NRIs, even within the segment of NRIs, that specific cohort who is most likely to avail FCNR would be culled out, and then we would probably market or communicate to them and see the conversions. We've seen that works really well, and that gives really great results.
So how big is this data science team? It's now been around for a while. What's the setup like?
Again, it kind of got into place at the same time, around a year and a half back. So data science was also set up as a separate team.
And how big is the team now?
Would be around 10 odd people.
Meaningful, at least from a number of people's perspective. When you talk about propensity modeling, so obviously the underlying data unification would have helped them get all of these different variables together. And you're saying it's delivering substantial incremental value. Well, automatically, if I have a higher propensity to buy to take a gold loan, then I'm better off being promoted that instead of a car loan, which I might have a very low propensity towards. So very interesting. So what you're saying is the data science team would be able to deliver these propensity scores, and you're able to incorporate that in your campaigns.
So even from the cross-sell perspective, if I want to, there is a segment of customers who've taken a gold loan with us, and now I want to, induce them for personal loans. They are likely to take personal loans. So there will be, data mining at play to identify the right cohort who's most likely to avail a PL.
Sure, it sounds extremely scientific and amazing. I always wonder how this sits with a traditional verticalized ecosystem where the guy who's responsible for selling, let's say, gold loans, now would end up being constrained by the kind of outcome that the data model is throwing out. So from a business plan and target setting and a goals perspective, how do you factor that, okay, this is a universe of high propensity gold loan buyers from my current customers. So whatever else this guy needs to solve for, he needs to solve from acquisition. How does this interplay work
So
out?
see, both the channels are actively at play at the same time.
Sure.
The acquisition team is constantly focusing on acquiring new customers, and that's a huge channel. At the same time, the
Current
like I
customer
told you,
harvest.
it's about ERV and extracting the right. So that is also a channel at play.
It
Both the
all
channels
adds
are
up
at
from a
play.
business side point of view.
Yeah. So gold loan is a huge, it's a very big segment for us.
Sure.
So definitely we would look at, it could also be the other way around. So you could look at the segment of customers who have taken a PL with you, and basis the data mining, they are very likely to avail a gold loan. The beauty about gold loan is it's extremely simple.
Sure.
Minimal documentation. You enter a branch in half an hour, you can avail a
Get the
gold
money in
loan
the
and
bank.
you go. And in terms of renewal of your existing gold loan through a Mera Plus app, it can be done in 5 minutes.
Okay. There's a lot of so-called maturity in the pricing of loans now, which is apparently happening in the lending industry, which is the rate that you get or whatever terms you get tend to be sweeter if you have a great history vis-a-vis not such a great history, right? So that's what I'm trying to understand, that from a bank's point of view, is that something that you care about, look at actively, want to move towards?
Yeah, so it's of course rates is very important, and we are competitive when it comes to rates, but that's not the only decision making criteria.
Sure.
There would be a whole lot of factors involved, like trust, the ease of availing that loan, the relationship value that you have with the bank is a very big part of it, the servicing that the bank gives. And like for example, our personal loans through our SIB Mera Plus app, you can literally get the credit in your account within 10 seconds.
Sure.
If you're a
What makes you
pre-approved.
wonder is when you're dealing with this Gen Z, which is sort of more fickle-minded, sort of not as big on loyalty and relationship, how does it work differently, if at all?
So that's where customer experience comes into play. And that's why we are, so to say, tech savvy and more digitized to enhance the customer experience with across all touch points,
So
whether
I'm gonna
it's the
take it from you
website,
because
whether
it's
it's
easy, because it's convenient, and obviously the trust is a table stakes, right?
Yes.
I would not
Also the
bank with
relationship. So if you see, people do have, if you're an existing customer and you're a primary banker for the existing customer, they would tend to get loans or additional products from you, even if you may be higher on the rates. Because there is an inherent trust and very strong
switching is a certain amount of effort.
Yeah.
So in the world where this is my primary bank and a dominant part of what I consume as products, sure, my next product would likely be first asked from this bank before I would consider anybody else. And that's a good space to be in, where you have a large base which is, so to speak, loyal with you. You have a large share of the ERV, as you put it, right? These guys are going to come to you first for anything new they ask. But how you evolve this in the new growth segment, that the number of new customers that you're going to acquire this year, the mix would look probably a little different from what your 94-year history, the mix looks like, right? And for this audience, if you were to change a few things, and all the people who are trying to address the same audience, what are the few things that you think are have to be looked at differently? So experience for sure, the UI UX has to be very differently thought through in terms of simplification. That's one. What else do you think would be the top of the list?
Yeah, so UI UX, personalized offers and personalized communication. Sometimes we would have a different UI UX depending on the profile.
Offers. I'm going to double click on that because it came from you. So that's kind of where you look at somebody like a Netflix or an Amazon. Now, if you look at their homepage, what the movies you see over the programs I see are very different.
Yeah.
Right? And this guy is used to that, right? He's not demanding that, he's expecting that. He knows that this is how, you know my entire history, so I expect you to know what to offer to me. And that's kind of where I would love to understand that when you talk about a personalized offer, there are several variables that are at play. That, okay, I know his income stream, I know his geography, I know his gender, I know his age bracket, several things. And that could translate into a variety of offers that could be there. And the offers in a banking ecosystem could mean either brand offers, or it could mean offers of products within the bank, that I'm going to give you slightly extra delta on a gold loan. So what does this offer portfolio look like? What is the combination of variables that you can utilize to personalize an offer, for example?
So what I meant was that it's personalized to your behavior. It's personalized to which would include data analysis from, of course, demographics, income, profile, also your transaction behavior, the amount of balances you have, the number of transactions, the offer. Like if you are availing, if there's a pre-approved offer given to an ex-customer, maybe a different offer, not necessarily rates, even the value would be different for you, different for another customer.
So the value part of it could modify basis the data science model and propensity that this guy
Absolutely.
can be given a 10 lakh loan
Also
versus
giving
this
it
guy a
at
2
the
lakh loan.
right time is also important. Like you had mentioned earlier, at your life stage, you don't really want a 45,000 loan. So that's all that has to come
Become
into
smart.
play.
So that's
You
again
have to
where your
also
data science
understand
team
the
will
life
play.
stage of the customer, the needs of the customer, and so everything together is where your customized or personalized offer comes in.
So what the product is being offered would probably come in from the personalization model in the data science team as to what is the likelihood of purchase, which is also a reflection of what do I probably care the most about at this point in my life and stage. And then within the component of, let's say, a personal loan being offered to me, the value of the limit would be smartly thought through instead of just being a flat number for everyone.
Right,
So you're saying
absolutely.
that a teenager might be offered a different value of personal loan compared to
Absolutely.
somebody who's at a certain different life stage, and also from the other variables in terms of income stream and this and that. So the value gets changed, and that's the personalization we're talking about. And this is getting engineered in the data science setup, and this is getting delivered by the MarTech on the front end. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. And what would be the next stage of evolution of this? So the value is dynamic. I open the app, you open the app, we see different loans being offered to us. What is the next leap in this?
No, so next leap would be personalized. So let's say if I'm a Gen Z customer, the look of the app itself is different for me. It's customized to me. The features that are shown are customized. The colors or the skin is customized, and all of that, because it should also resonate with
The personality?
Yeah.
So, we spoke about a bunch of technology choices you would have made along the way in terms of putting together the stack that you have now in place. What are the key decision criteria? How do you choose, and what kind of mistakes can happen which you think people can avoid?
Yeah, so see, this technology is evolving at a super fast speed, and there's so many players and big and small, and providing so many different solutions. It can all get quite intimidating for a marketer. So there are certain things that I think one should look out for when it comes to the next stage of adopting a MarTech stack. And first and foremost is, please align with the organizational goals. So we may get carried away, if I may say so, and get the best stack and the best most expensive with all the solutions, but we may not be able to maximize usage of it, and it may not align with the goals of your organization. So alignment with the goals of your organization are very important, and I would say a gradual adoption is preferred instead of going all out and doing everything in one go. Take into account certain whatever limitations or processes that are there in your organization. So for instance, for us, since we are a legacy bank, data robustness is something that we would want to keep in mind for the stack adoption, because that is clearly the most important part of it. So once our robustness is in place, or the data is robust, that would be one integral part. Also alignment with the existing systems of the bank, especially in legacy players, and the integration of the systems should be also taken into
So integration,
consideration.
this would be typically data brought into the MarTech and data sent out back to
the entire thing, stitching everything together, all your channels, your core banking platform, your campaign management, your analytics tool, everything.
This can, like you said, be a little intimidating to look at everything at once, right? So would you kind of break this down into a sequence of what is must-have integration on day zero versus what keeps building up? For all I care, you might want a customer care call center logs also to get integrated into your MarTech, right?
Yeah. So in terms of the future adoption of MarTech, you're saying?
So from a data integration standpoint, you said that you must make sure when you're choosing your MarTech, all of this data is getting stitched together. Now, would you do this all at once, or would you sequence this out a little bit?
No, see, what is very important is already mentioned that customer single view and data repository in one place is absolutely
Sure.
important. Integrating it with your communication channels, it may not be omni-channel in one go, but that's the endeavor. So that can be phased out basis
Sure.
your this. Analytics is something that has to be there, because otherwise you won't get sight of what's working and whatnot. And integration with your core systems, banking systems. There are certain things which are essential, and then you can roll out to more evolved platforms in a gradual way is what I would say.
So one of the things, please complete.
Yeah, no, the other thing is also, optimizing the usage of it. So there's no point taking a whole lot of solutions and you're not able to optimize it or use it optimally. Trainings of your team to be able to, use it. So these are some of the things.
So within that, I'm going to zoom into two key pointers that we frequently observe. So one part is what you described as the adoption. Now, typically with most MarTech stacks, most people end up using 20% of the actual value of the platform, somewhere because the organizational maturity / upskilling that's needed on the part of the people does not get the requisite attention / mindshare. And also because it's a relatively new subject if you think about it, because compared to a general advertising or a customer acquisition play, which has now become a 15-20-year-old industry, even on the digital side, compared to a creative advertising, which is a much more mature kind of setup where people have thoughts and maturity and playbooks. Adopting MarTech is still fairly new to most people in India, which means the ability to translate those ideas, firstly to have those ideas and then to translate them to actual executed setup itself is a bit of evolution. And where we see people investing quite substantially in the stack, but not as substantially in the people side of things. So what you're saying is be very cognizant of the choice where you're taking a stack, but then also investing in people to use that stack.
Right.
And the other aspect was one of the things we've also noticed people talk about frequently is there are these complex systems which tend to have a fairly large but very integrated single offering that they'll solve 20 things for you all from the single platform. And I would compare this to the world of pre-built computers, those times when we used to buy like an HP or a compact computer, which is comprehensive, which has a bunch of things it does. But when I had gone to my college and when we bought our first computer, I ended up buying my RAM, my motherboard, my CPU, my this separately, and I assembled my computer the way I wanted it. And now what we're increasingly seeing, even in the enterprise and legacy ecosystem, is the same as like yourself are savvy enough to say, okay, I don't want one giant solution. I'm going to pick up the best of each piece of my puzzle that I want to solve for, so that I will make it talk to each other nicely. At some point, if I feel that this piece is not working well, I'm able to remove it and replace it with something else. But the largest of solutions are good with some things. They're not the greatest with everything. And that's a theme that we're seeing evolve. What's your observation on this?
Yeah, you're absolutely right in the sense there's no sense going for everything in one go. The best case situation in one go. It's better to start small and then gradually optimize and scale it up is how I would think. Also, it's also a huge investment in the sense. So we have to be prudent about how we are getting into this. And after all, we'll have to justify the ROI as well.
Awesome. So here we have a CMO who's been 26 years in the industry, but she's kept her learning curve very, very clearly intact in terms of making sure she understands everything that's happening in the ecosystem and is on top of the change that's happening. Thank you so much for doing this, Azmat.
Thank you.
So well, that was a fairly insightful session from me, especially learning the new terms and terminologies used in the banking industry. So we've seen the amount of hunger Azmat has shown in terms of learning how the MarTech ecosystem is evolving, how personalization is to play a role, how propensity modeling and data science teams come together to unify customer experience. Quite an exciting conversation. I also understand the fascination as well as almost the compulsion to work with the Gen Z's expectations of a highly personalized and tailored customer experience, which is the order of the day, and everyone has to gear up for it. The fact that she is already looking out to evolve her game to the next level after having built a customer data platform and a certain level of segmentation and personalization in the last 1.5 years is quite impressive. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this fascinating and useful for your journey.